Namaskar viewers, hello and welcome to Sansad TV. I am Tina Jha, you're watching Perspective. The winter session of Parliament concluded on Friday with both houses adjourned sine die 6 days ahead of schedule. In his valedictory address, Lok Sabha Speaker Om Birla said the productivity of the House was 97% during the 13 sittings, which saw passage of 7 bills including the supplementary demands for grants and the Maritime Anti-Piracy Bill. In Rajya Sabha, Chairman Jagdeep Dhankhar said the productivity of the House was 102%. The House held 13 sittings, totaling 64 hours, 50 minutes. The Upper House passed the Wildlife Protection Amendment Bill, the Energy Conservation Amendment Bill, 3 bills relating to the Constitution, Scheduled Castes and Scheduled Tribes Orders Amendment Bill, the New Delhi International Arbitration Centre Amendment, also the Maritime Anti-Piracy Amendment Bills during the session. So a quick analysis of the productivity and the outcome of the winter session of Parliament on the show today, with 2 distinguished parliamentarians joining us on the program. Pleased to welcome in the studio Mr. Hasnain Masoodi. He is Member of Parliament Lok Sabha, representing the JNK-NC party, and Dr. Sashmit Patra, he is Member of Parliament. He represents the BJD in the Upper House, the Rajya Sabha. Thank you very much, sirs, for joining us on the program. Mr. Masoodi, allow me to begin the program today with you. What for you has been the biggest takeaway from the winter session of Parliament?
I mean, first, after a good session, last session as well, was the most productive session. And I mean, what is the first primary duty of the Parliament is to enact law. And that legislation was done in a hassle-free manner with least disruptions. And that is one of the biggest achievements. 97%, you know, the history, how the 17th Lok Sabha has gone. So it is quite an achievement. And second is that ample time was given to the members to raise the issues. And more importantly, a good discussion was what is the current challenge before the humankind, as well as before our country, that is drug addiction. A good discussion was made on that. Everybody got a chance to articulate his viewpoint. And again, for the first time I saw, or maybe you may correct me, government agreed to refer a bill which had some kind of an impact on federalism and all that is multi-state cooperative society bill to a select committee. This is rarely done in the current session. We have really government acceding to a demand to refer the bill to a select committee, have its views, and then go for deliberations, go for discussion, debate on such bill. Because there were a lot of issues were raised that maybe we are just taking over, we are overstepping the jurisdiction, and we are taking over what genuinely belongs to a state. And they are expected to, under the cover of multi-state cooperative societies, maybe we are in a way overstepping and we are encroaching on their territory. And it is good that government considered that, because these are tools of the Parliament. These are called mini Parliament, these committees. Right. It is good to have a good discussion and then come before the House, so that we can have a better view and we can just go for a productive and, objective and fair debate over the bill. So from every viewpoint, this session was productive, less disruptions, almost no disruptions except the last day. So from that view, that I think is the big takeaway. And if we go ahead like that, that means we will be doing what we are expected to legislate, deliberate on the important challenges before the country, and try to come out with the solutions. That is what was done. And that
clearly,
way it was good.
As journalists, when we discuss each time a session ends, Dr. Patra, the productivity of the sessions, it's quite rare, especially in the last couple of years, to say that productivity has been satisfying and so many bills have been passed and so many short duration discussions pertaining to people's issues have also been taken up in both houses. So in that aspect, both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha have recorded productivity which is above 97%. Rajya Sabha, in fact, 102%. But before we get on to the productivity part, another significant aspect of the winter session, and particularly for Rajya Sabha, has been that for Mr. Jagdeep Dhankhar, this was the first session as the presiding officer. So what is the kind of significance that you saw him bring to the chair and the kind of difference that he made as presiding officer?
I think Honorable Chairman and Honorable Vice President of India, when he took office, and we had met him earlier, and I'm just talking about beyond the confines of Rajya Sabha, and he had assured that he would listen to every single member. And when he came on the chair, and during this session that we had 13 sittings, if you look at it, whenever there has been an opportunity either from the opposition or from the government. He has always lent his ear. He has always allowed, whether it's the leader of the House or leader of the opposition, to raise issues. And he's been very forthcoming in his views in terms of the rules and procedures of business. He himself was an eminent advocate, and he has worked as a very senior Supreme Court advocate in the past as well. So I think his understanding of the nuances of parliamentary form of democracy, himself having been a parliamentary affairs minister in the past, as well as his depth of understanding of the laws and the rules. So people, whether it was the opposition or the government, could not, have its own say by just talking about the rules of procedures of business. He specified, he said, which is the rule, tell me the rule, the item of the rule, and whether that specific condition is being met by your intervention or not. I think that is something which is very significant about Honorable Chairman of Rajya Sabha, and his wit, his charm, the way he uses humor at times, the way he uses his wit. His one-liners have now become, really landmark things, the way, and says it in such a way, he said, I will look first to the left, which is the opposition, then I'll look to the right, the government, and again I'll look to the left, the opposition, before I make up my mind. So that, I think, shows his magnanimity on the chair. And I think he has like that fresh breath that has come in, and 102% of productivity on such a short sitting, despite disruptions. It wasn't that disruptions haven't been there. Unlike the Lok Sabha, which saw disruptions towards the end, we've had disruptions in the last week and this week at least 3 to 4 times minimum, especially on the 267 notices relating to Chinese aggression. So I would say that we are all charmed by the Honorable Chairman. We are all in awe of his presence of mind and the wit with which he's able to turn a very difficult situation into a very amicable situation. I think that is something that is going to be looked forward to in the coming sessions.
Absolutely. Mr. Masudi, the fact that, you mentioned that everyone got their fair share of time, despite this being a short session. In fact, one of the think tanks has compiled this report saying that this is the 8th consecutive session that has ended ahead of schedule. So the fact that even in this short period of time, we've been able to get a lot of bills passed, important ones that had been pending for some time, and also the important aspect, and which has been of extreme relevance to a lot of members of parliament that we've spoken to in the past, is we did not get a fair share of time to speak, to raise issues of the people who we represent. Has that changed? Because a lot of participation we saw from the members of parliament during short duration discussions on pertinent issues.
There was educated participation. But one thing, one aspect of these procedures session is that we didn't get enough time in 0 hour, because normally the chair used to be very liberal about it and even sit till late hours to allow everybody to just articulate and see and try to have focus on the problems. But we didn't get that much time to 0 hour to raise those problems in this session. Somehow I don't think that you ever saw us sitting there in the session late evenings, as used to be the practice, previously. We didn't get that kind of time to say, so articulate, to bring to the notice of the House the problems that we face in our respective people face in their, who expect that their members will raise these problems. We didn't get that kind of time.
So we've seen less of disruptions in this particular session. Perhaps that will also be taken care of in the future sessions. But
one more aspect of it is that I think that it was very good on part of the government that Defense Minister made a statement on China. I think there was not a good reason to just insist on a discussion thereafter, because once the government lost no time in just have its viewpoint before the House and inform the House that how things are going on the border. I think there was not a good reason to then insist on a full-fledged debate. But all said and done, so we lost a day or two, should not have been lost.
Okay, coming back to the important discussions, Dr. Patra, that had took place in Rajya Sabha, And I'll talk about two specific bills. One is the Maritime Anti-Piracy Bill, which had been pending for long, which was the need of the hour, and which has now incorporated the suggestions of the Standing Committee and has been passed in both houses. So the sense of the House when the Piracy Bill was discussed, and also the Wildlife Bill, because that also saw a lot of discussion, members cutting across party lines, sharing their thoughts, their suggestions on the important bill. So what was the sense of the upper house on these important bills?
I think on the Maritime Anti-Piracy Bill, it being a bill that has got a great bearing not only in terms of maritime trade and commerce of the country, but also has an impact on geopolitics. I think the House was absolutely united in the Rajya Sabha in its strong views that having passed through legislative scrutiny in the Standing Committee, and that most of the recommendations of the Standing Committee have been adopted. And by the time the Maritime Anti-Piracy Bill came to the Rajya Sabha, it had also been vetted by the Lok Sabha. And few amendments, it was very kind of Honorable Dr. Jaishankarji to actually bring about amendments right down from the title of the bill. Earlier it was Anti-Maritime Piracy Bill. And then he brought in the amendment and said, okay, because I remember Shri Manish Tiwari ji actually said it should be maritime anti-piracy. And it was very open and very, magnanimous of the Honorable External Affairs Minister. He said, I'm conceding to it. He not only did that, he brought about 3 or 4 more important amendments. So by the time it came to the Rajya Sabha, a lot of it had been amended. And of course, the House was more focused in terms of how we can ensure the safety of our seafarers. Almost every ship of this world, if you see, there will be at least some person of an Indian origin. So their protection, their safety, not only Indian ships, but foreign ships where Indian nationals are there or Indian products are being actually shipped across, especially across the coast of Africa, where you find greater amount of thing. In the past also, many situations were cited how the MEA was proactive in terms of reaching out and ensuring. In some cases, our naval, ships had to really provide an escort for many of the ships as well. So I think those issues were discussed. Coming to the wildlife aspect, I think it was a very important bill because it was differentiating the invasive species that have actually come on board into the country and are actually destroying the flora and thereby impacting the fauna of the country as well. And how we can really provide protection for them and how we can segregate them, I think that was taken up. Both the bills saw absolute unanimity in the House in terms of support. One was in terms of also wildlife, one was in terms of international geopolitics. Both were supported wholesomely. There were some concerns which the opposition party members raised, and the ministers in their respective replies also conceded to certain areas and said part of that would come in the rules and regulations that would be framed after the law is passed. So I think overall it were very fruitful discussions. Also the short duration on climate change that came in, it was an extremely fruitful exercise for us to actually go through, talk about the impact, and the Honourable Minister also on his part made a very fair assessment in terms of our commitments in COP27 and how it reflects in our own international obligations and commitments towards carbon emission control.
In fact, I was about to come to the aspect of global warming because it concerns us a lot. The extreme weather events is something that have impacted each and every part of the world, and so in India. So we've been seeing extreme weather events, droughts in one part, floods in the other part of the country, and it directly relates to the common man. So basically, the members of the upper house sitting together and discussing an issue which directly impacts us was extremely satisfying to us. So in terms of the sense that you gave us, the kind of discussions that took place, were there also suggestions that we can do as individuals, as communities to step up our participation and to ensure preservation of biodiversity towards climate change aspects also?
Yes, there were very important and pertinent observations that came across for the citizens of the country. One was in terms of rainwater harvesting, and how rainwater harvesting can be done in a more procedure and policy-based manner. Right now, we are doing it in a piecemeal manner. But instead of that, how we can, every citizen, every household can look at A, conserving water, B, recycling water, C, bringing about more greener buildings, more greener habitations. For that, the building codes need to change. That is the policy part. But for the individuals, in terms of conserving energy, in terms of using more renewable energy by harnessing solar, by harnessing water harvesting. So many of these aspects can be done individually by the concerned citizens, not only in individual houses, but if you were to look at it, I'll just refer here to the energy bill that came in, which was piloted by Honorable Minister Shri R.K. Singh ji, where he actually said, and it was very impactful, that the amount of energy load that a large apartment building takes up today can actually light up a whole mall for almost a week, which actually goes out in one day. So if that is the kind of energy consumption that we are actually taking, can you imagine the amount of carbon credits that we should actually be giving back, which you are not? So we are taking so much of carbon through all of these emissions come in, but we're not giving it back. How do we give it back? That is where the carbon credits markets come in. That is where carbon credits actually being used as a measure of compensating the losses of carbon emissions that we are doing to the environment, not only as individual houses, but as large housing communities as well. So as a nation and as a society, India is growing into large housing societies now. And all of them are consuming resources, not only energy, water, but various other, which is impacting climate change. So these are some of the measures that were thought of that common citizens can really think of helping and adding their own share of reducing the carbon emissions and helping the climate change.
Clearly, Dr. Masoodi, so this was about what happened in Rajya Sabha, but the Lok Sabha also discussed an important aspect about the problem of drugs in the country.
Yes.
And this is one area in which the government has been taking efforts. We want India to be drug-free, but that, of course, will happen only with proactive efforts, both from the government as well as the communities, as the people, as Dr. Patra suggested, is in the case of climate change. Just a few weeks ago, New Zealand has passed a landmark bill, which is being talked about globally. They have reduced the age of people who can actually go and buy tobacco products, cigarettes. So anyone born in the country after 2008 will practically not be able to go and buy cigarettes and tobacco products starting 2023. The fact that similar steps need to be incorporated in other countries is being spoken about. It's come up as a model law, and a lot of countries are now actually looking up to adapt to it. The fact that we are a larger country, the challenge is going to be immense. So when it comes to the problem of drugs, and which we are seeing is spreading fast, what is the kind of discussion that came up? What is the assurance that the Home Minister gave to the representatives who participated in the discussion?
Apart from the assurance, first let me come to the kind of discussion we had.
Sure.
It was for the first time that everybody went to whatever was up in his mind and tried to just make suggestions, valid suggestions, how we should combat this the problem. So the discussion was facilitated in a very earlier we used to have discussions where there used to be some kind of bitterness, but it was a discussion where apart from party lines, everybody said and emphasizes that everyone should contribute to the measures that are expected to be taken. The legal interventions, also legislative measures and other measures to combat this problem. It was a fair and frank discussion. See, one important point was that we should try to differentiate between the victim and the culprit, and we should not have same kind of strategy against the both. Where we should emphasize and we should lay stress on the measures to come to the rescue of the victim, try to wean away the victim. But at the same time, we should not be liberal about those who peddle over drug peddlers and who just, at the cost of the nation, at the cost of the individuals who just try to go for that enrichment, go for their own benefit. So there was an agreement that though law may not require big changes, the NDPS Act, we may need little changes, but there is to be change, there is required to be change in the approach, in the mindset and attitudinal shift. That is what was emphasized during the discussion. But what is good about the discussion was everybody made constructive suggestions without that kind of, entering into any kind of disagreements and disputes and all that. And Home Minister gave us a good, his response was also adequate. And he tried to just refer to each and every point that was raised during the discussion and gave the House a good idea about the measures that are already taken and the measures that are proposed to be taken to control, the movement of drugs, the transportation, the availability, the access, as you suggested, as you just referred to the measures taken in case of New Zealand. He gave a good idea about what are the measures that are proposed to be taken so that we can meet this challenge effectively. So that way also it was a very good discussion, and everybody got benefited by the views that were articulated in the House.
Certainly, and because we have a large number of youth. We are the youngest youngest country in the world today. It's important for us to ensure that our young population does not get addicted to such bad habits, to tobacco products, to drugs, and therefore we have to address the problem right from the beginning.
Preventive measures as well as punitive measures.
Clearly.
Measures how to stop and measures how to wean away, how to save, how to reclaim the youth.
Right, and the fact that, we are discussing issues which we all relate to. These were discussed at length in both houses of parliament. This is what goes amiss when there are disruptions and the both houses do not, sit effectively and perform the role for which they're supposed to. The fact, Dr. Patra, that the Rajya Sabha chairman did at the end also raise a grim view about the disruption. So some time was lost. Rajya Sabha's productivity could have been a little better had it not lost about 1 hour 50 minutes to the disruption that happened for a brief period on the Chinese aggression issue. But in the sessions also, this has been a very, very satisfying session. In the next session, it will be a budget session divided in 2 parts, lots of expectations, lots of important work to be done. So to minimize disruptions again and to implement what has actually happened here, to see the same kind of results, what is it that, what is the approach of the political parties that as common people we can expect to actually sit together and discuss issues like we have done in the winter session?
I think, I'll be a little political here. 2023 budget session would be exactly about a year away from 2024 general elections. So when you have elections nearing, I do not think at times, I'm being very frank, political parties start making their stands and positioning more stronger. Because then, you are about 12 months, 14 months away, and you are technically into an election year by the time you're actually ending. But I'm sure because there'll be demand for grants coming in, and there'll be at least 4 ministries that would come up for discussion in either houses. And none of them will have an overlap. Usually the large ones, let's say, for example, railways, rural development, so on and so forth, will come in. And various political parties, whether they're national party, which is the Congress in the opposition, or is the regional parties like us and Sir's National Conference, we will, of course, talk about our states. I'll talk about Odisha, Shell will talk about Jammu and Kashmir, some will talk from Telangana. And I believe whether it's the Lok Sabha or the Rajya Sabha, the voices of the states being heard through discussions in a budget session is more crucial. Right. Because people across the country want to understand what is it there for us. What have we got in terms of railways? What are we going to get in highways? How much are the new railway lines that have come in? What is the kind of fiscal policies or taxation measures the government is taking that the middle class or the low income groups are going to get benefited? So I think those are key issues which general people would want to understand. And I'm sure the lawmakers will also use this opportunity because this would be a full budget last before 2024 elections. The next one would be just a vote on account, probably. So therefore, this being a full budget, this will also be a budget coming up. And we are very short between 2 sessions. It's just 30 days. I was kind of saying that today is already 22nd. But the next 22nd will be only 7-8 days before the joint session of Parliament by the Honorable President. So I think it's a very short gap. And I'm sure all the political parties are going to go back, do their homework, get ready with the issues that they have at hand, and then come back and ask for a measure which they feel is justified in the larger interest of the society and of the nation, and especially of those people that they represent.
Clearly. So it's important to talk about states, but I think what's detrimental is when you start using the parliament, the floor of the parliament as a political tool to reach out to the voters ahead of elections. I think that is what is detrimental to the institution of parliament. One last word from you, Dr. Masudi, before I wrap up.
I mean, if you go in hindsight and see, there has been a lot of introspection. I mean, less disruptions, people don't come to the well, and otherwise it would be just on the top of the hat. Yes. Everybody will rush to the well. We have seen whole session getting washed away. That is not, I mean, there is, with every passing day, some kind of introspection. And these, I mean, in the disruptions, less disruptions, and more productive. Everybody is making an effort that the session should be productive. And we should do whatever, for the purpose we have been sent here by our electorate. Yes. I mean, let us hope that the budget session is more productive, less disruptions, and we are able to just perform the fundamental duty, that is to give voice to the problems that we have, I mean, our respective constituencies, try to find some kind of grievance redressal, some kind of response, so that is more and more productive.
Clearly, and with that positive outlook, because we are in an Amrit Kal, 2022 ends, it's been a significant year for us Indians. We've marked Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. Now we've set newer goals for ourselves for the next 25 years, and it can be achieved only if we work together. So an example of the winter session of Parliament, wherein we've seen all political parties, all our representatives in Parliament sitting together, discussing all of these pertinent issues that matter to us, and we expect similar outcomes in the future sessions as well. So with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Perspective. Thank you once again to both my guests for joining me on the program, sharing your thoughts, your views with us and our viewers. And to you viewers, thank you very much for your time. I'll see you same time tomorrow. Take care of yourselves. Keep watching Sansad TV.